Good afternoon, everyone. I am Sarah Schweiger, and welcome to today's training. I recently had to teach a course I hadn't touched in over 2 years. I didn't have any updated materials and only had a few days to prepare 4 weeks of content. So one of the tools that I turned to was Adobe Express to generate a presentation outline and then a full presentation with a single prompt. And so what I have here today is I actually have Adobe Express on my screen, and I'm going to demonstrate that process that I went through when I had a very short amount of time to prepare for the class. And what I want to do is think about how I started out the process. There's a couple of things that I want to prompt Adobe Express with to kind of constrain the project. So generate presentation will be the next thing that I want to click on. And then this begins the prompting, right? First, I want to define the task. For week 1, I needed an overview of the course. So I want to start out by giving a little bit of information on that. And I actually have a pre-written statement here. However, it doesn't have to be perfect when I type this information in. I could just give it the name of the class. I could also, the second thing that's very important is giving AI some information about the students or who the target audience is. This is very important because, again, we want to explain to AI who we are presenting to. That's very important. So first task, the second thing is audience. I could put some other information about the audience in there, and I could say something like, hey, I want to make sure that the information about the project is it's intended for beginner to intermediate students, because this is a 200 level class. You see that right here in the design, right? We're going to go ahead and make sure it's intended for beginner or immediate students. Again, narrowing down, doesn't have to be complete sentences, but just giving it some information. You could even use like bullet points if you wanted to. I may also tell it like some information about each of the weeks, because I want to create a 4-week presentation. I might want to give it some information about each of the weeks and what we're going to cover. So now we're giving it a task, we're giving it an audience. Now we're starting to give it some information about constraints and detailed information so that it can kind of fill in the slides for us a little bit, right? But we also want to think about things like style and constraints, like, hey, how many slides should we make? Should we make, 100 slides, or should we make it, 5 to 7 slides, right? So again, I have some information here. I wanted to use like clear headlines, concise bullet points, things like that. Those are all what I would call style information, right? And then follow that up with some constraints, such as, hey, can we make sure that this is only going to be, 5 to 7 slides? I don't need a gigantic presentation, but something like this would be really nice. Okay, so now that you've got your prompt in there, let's go ahead and hit next. Scan through these and see which one looks the nicest or feels like it could be the best look. I kind of like this one. It's nice and bold. And as I mouse over them, it's giving me like a little preview of what all the slides already look like, but it's going to take my information and put that in here. So I'm going to go ahead and click this one because I like this one. And then we're going to hit next. And then what it does is it gives me an outline. This is fantastic, right? An outline of what each slide's going to cover. And if I missed a slide, or if I want to add a slide, I could add a section. So you can see how powerful this tool is, right? So next I'm going to do is I'm going to just tell it to generate, because I want to see what it can come up with. So let's go ahead and do that now. So let's take a look at how it came out. Now, one thing though that I may want to do is include some examples of previous student work, right? One of the things that I prompted it to do is I did tell it that at the end of the 4 weeks that the students are going to be creating a poster. And while this picture is very interesting, students aren't going to be able to write on a board like that. They're going to have to create a digital version of a poster on their computer using the software that they've been learning up until now. So at first glance, I feel like this presentation looks very complete, but subheaders are a little harder to read on the screen. I might want to make the body copy here a little bit thicker, right? And so I think this example, what I'm demonstrating here, we have to think about the importance of the human judgment. Again, the photo, great photo. It really catches my attention, but I might want to actually show some examples of student work in this. And that might be something really easy to find after I've created this simple slide presentation that I can just throw in here and even replace this photo. They have this replace button that works really, really well. So while it gets my information in a real organized manner and it also has a nice layout and a nice flow to it, we really need to think about here that AI is fast. It's, for the most part, pretty good quality, clarity, and alignment with learning objectives. But remember, AI amplifies skill, but discernment remains human. And I think that this example really shows you like how that all comes together. Until next time, everybody, take care.